Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Goalie Interference. As always, we are joined with Mike McKenna of Daily Faceoff, the one and only Mike McKenna of Daily Faceoff. We have a great show on hand in which I've been working on finding photos from all of us from 2005 because the intern pulled that one up of you. So we have me and Jason. We will show them later, but that's the tease of the day. First off,
Good.
How's the weather there? It's freezing here.
Yeah, I've heard that about Vegas. That you guys are down into the 30s. Like, what's going on out there, man? Usually it's like shorts and pina colada weather.
Well,
It's cold here, and we've got snow and ice in St. Louis, and I will actually double check on the actual temperature, but it was 60 something yesterday. And when I took my kids to the bus stop, by nighttime it was about 30. And now it's 19 degrees here in St. Louis.
No, see, that's no good. We are 38 at the moment here in sunny. Well, it's not anymore, but Summerlin. It says it's drizzling. I haven't been outside, so maybe it is drizzling. Well, must not be, because this little guy who got his hair cut looks much better today than he did last week.
Is that old Wigliffe there? Is that what we're looking at?
He is not wet, so we're in good shape. All right, so let's jump right in. Golden Knights' most recent game was kind of a joke, is one way to put it.
San Jose is not impressive. I'll say that.
Team's not good. The games before, obviously, the loss against the Kings in overtime, and then we had the show since the Colorado game, Arizona on the docket, and then Colorado again. McKinnon potentially out. We'll see. But I guess I think maybe the biggest story that we've gotten over the course of the last two games has been another shift in lines. We're headed to another style here, and the biggest piece of that is your team leading scorer, or at least he was for a while. I think he still is. Chandler Stevenson has been placed out of position. You're one center too many if you like Brett Howden as a center. And so Chandler Stevenson and his speed is all of a sudden on the wing with Jack Eichel. When you first saw that, did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you understand it? Like, where are you on that?
I thought it was a better option than having Evgenii Dadonov on the right side. And I feel like, Stevenson had kind of gotten lost for a while, man. Like, it'd been, 7-8 games since he'd scored and really, found the score sheet at all, I want to say. And that's not been Chandler Stevenson this year.
Right. Not this year.
And no. And I think that's kind of the weapon that he is, we've thought him as a centerman, as a pivot now for the last 2+ seasons, especially with the Golden Knights. And, he typically didn't play that much of it. I saw him play wing when he was coming up younger, even through Hershey and Washington. He was a winger quite often. So right side was a bit surprising, but I like that combination with Eichel, and he's way better fit than Dadonov. And it seemed to work. It seemed like he needed a big jolt of energy, though, man. Because it seemed like things had just gotten stale. He wasn't going to be able to do it all by himself.
Right.
So
I think in the offensive zone, you were seeing some things that were exciting. I don't feel like we quite got that jolt of speed that we've often seen when he plays with Pacioretty and Stone. I didn't feel like that was kind of there, and maybe that's just more time is needed with Eichel. But I certainly felt in the offensive zone, when you have Eichel who can hang on to the puck, Stevenson who can hang on to the puck, and their ability to kind of move things around, it's going to create space for each other. And then for Pacioretty eventually. Pacioretty's goals have been goofy, but he's got 3 in 2 games here, so that's good.
He does. And that's kind of a thing that I've noticed. So, to me, Pacioretty doesn't look like he's going full tilt. And I don't know whether that's me just watching and thinking that, or whether there's something that's nagging him. I don't know. He just doesn't look like he's really full bore right now. And I think, Stevenson and Eichel are pretty, that's as fast as you're going to get in this league. Now, Stevenson can push D back. He can hang on to the puck, but he doesn't do things nearly as quickly as Jack Eichel does. And that's what you're really starting to see now, is how fast Jack Eichel's processor is. He gets into the zone and makes decisive decisions with his head up very quickly. He knows what he's doing in advance. It's just funny that the first goal he scores is an absolute layup, because Stevenson held on to the puck forever. Like in some ways, it was a really goofy goal, and
they fell asleep too defensively multiple times.
You stole my words. As I say, San Jose just was absolutely napping. Like San Jose was
like ridiculous.
Just not impressive
in two different cases, Stevenson dropping in behind him, they fell asleep on that, and then when Eichel activates, it's like they saw Stevenson out in front and were like, he's probably going to score. Let's just stand here. Eichel activates and gets it behind him again. You're like, guys, what are you doing? But for the Golden Knights, like, it looked like a great play, and it is. You take advantage of those moments and create a tap-in. That's something they haven't done a ton of.
Yeah, and just watching Eichel attack the zone, the way he comes in, head up, carrying the puck. His zone entries they're very unpredictable in a great way because he can roast you wide, or he can spin up so fast and open up that middle seam, which we saw. And that's a big plus for this team, because that's something that Mark Stone can do that well on the wing, but he doesn't do it at speed like Eichel.
Right.
Mark Stone's skill set is based on his smarts, his intuition, his great hands, and they're world class. But it doesn't process at the same speed that Eichel does, and everything, feet going with it. And that dynamicism, I hope that's a word, dynamicism.
I think it's dynamicism.
Dynamicism. I missed a syllable. Thank you.
I think so.
That's why I'm only a burgeoning journalist.
Or maybe it is an M. Now I'm second guessing myself. I feel like it is dynamic. Yeah. I don't know. Probably not a word. Let's go with it's not a word. You made it up, and now it's a McKenna word. I like it.
We'll take that one. Dynamism. That's terrible.
You're going one short. I think there is an extra syllable in there, but excellent dynamism.
Dynamity. Yeah. Manimity.
Yes.
So anyway, no, I like Stevenson. If you can't have him top two lines at center, if you want to plug him in on the wing, I think that works. He is a versatile player. He's done it before. I just thought he'd found his home at center. And I think really he's going to be a center somewhere in this league if it's not with Vegas at some point, down the road here. But it kind of just makes me think, where does Dadonov fit in the mix here with this club at all, Ken? I can't figure at this stage of the game, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
where he fits.
Not seeing him in the power play like I think they had hoped. Yes, he's fine in that bumper role, but it's not something they utilize a lot of. I feel like maybe Eichel can bring a little bit more out of him in that role, but at $5 million and certainly seemingly going to be a third line player when they're even close to healthy. I don't even think they have to be fully healthy for him to be a third line player. And in that role, you're just not going to get a lot out of him. Like, yes, the moment was there when he played with Eichel. I think there is a possibility that if you get everyone back, maybe there's the ability to kind of shift some players around and create a more dynamism line around him. I think there is a chance to be able to do that, but
why at this point? At this point, it doesn't. It's over. The ship sailed to me. That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't see him. I don't think he's been a fit all year, and I don't think he's a fit next year. I think you get rid of.
I would agree.
I sound like a ruthless GM, don't I? Isn't that terrible?
I don't think he was a fit in the first place, though, and I think they should have known that in the first place. He didn't make sense on this roster, and it was a bad move at that time, and it's going to be a bad move to get rid of him.
I was surprised by it at the time. I figured there was reasoning for it, that there was underlying injuries that we didn't know about, that they thought maybe he can stopgap somebody being out, and there was the hope that, hey, Eichel's going to be gone. Maybe he can give us juice on the PP. That's the best I could really figure. I mean, I know what he looked like in Florida, but I also know how much Sasha Barkov drove that boat and how good that player is. And he didn't have that in Ottawa. And look what happened. I mean, fell off the map. And you've seen it in spurts with the Golden Knights, that when somebody can give him the puck where he needs it in his wheelhouse perfect,
he can do
it.
Yeah.
But if it's not perfect, no. And he hasn't been effective as a guy up high tipping pucks. And at that dollar figure, man, the biggest question I have is, how do you move it? Like, you're going to have to pay somebody to take that contract, because they don't, like, teams know Vegas is in one here with the salary cap, but that's also half the league. So you're going to have all these bottom feeder teams that are trying to take on contracts. Like, I mean, he could end up in Arizona, maybe. I guess.
I think in the off season, I think you might be able to get away with it. There's always teams kind of looking to grab somebody and find a way, and it's an expiring contract at that point if you go all the way through the season. I just think in this regular season, it's going to be tricky. Now, there has been some mention, and I don't know how realistic this is, that they could potentially trade him after the deadline and then he would be ineligible to play in the playoffs. Like, I've seen that mentioned. That doesn't seem horribly likely because, again, you're asking somebody to take a player off your hands. It doesn't really do any good. Like, you're going to have to bribe somebody to take him. And I think you're better off with him. If you're going to have to bribe somebody to take him, you might as well try and stick him in a line, down the lineup and hope that maybe he can, score a goal here or there. And he certainly is going to make your power play a little bit better. Obviously, $5 million hurts you, but I don't know why they're going to need cap. Like, I just don't see a situation where Stone's going to come back into this lineup. It doesn't make sense.
That's my thought. I think, and even if you're not trying to manipulate the cap to get everybody, flexibility is not a bad thing. And I don't think they're going to lose anything by moving Dadonov out, really.
I don't either, but I don't know that that's likely because they don't like to eat picks to trade people away. Like, they prove that with Fleury in a big way, that if they can get only a Mikael Häkkinen, they'll do it in a heartbeat. But if somebody wants a third-round pick, and actually if you go back all the way to the second year, in between year one and year two, there were pretty heavy rumors that people were asking for picks back in exchange for Tatar, and that Tatar was actually in that deal an asset that Montreal was taking on and not something where Vegas was actually getting value of it. And if you look at that deal, Suzuki in a second for Pacioretty, that's actually a halfway decent deal. Now when you throw in Tatar, it kind of changes the picture, but it's like they'll do it in that type of deal. I do wonder if maybe they look at the deadline and say, well, we don't think he fits next season. We don't have to necessarily get rid of the $5 million because we have the ability to put or have this LTIR go the rest of the season. Maybe they will look to find another player. Like Joel Pavelski's name has been out there. Now all of a sudden Philip Forsberg's name was in. What poetic justice would that be if they went down that road? I don't think it's happening, but
I don't know that those rumors are as solid as everybody thinks either.
I don't either, but I don't know. I just think there is a possibility that they could get to the deadline and say, you know what, this is a way we can go, a route we can go. We're going to do this in the offseason anyway. Let's just pull it off now. JT Miller is another name that's been coming up, and he was somehow linked to Vegas.
These guys aren't coming to Vegas right now. I don't, man, if they pull that off, I'd be tip my cap 1,000 times if you manage to grab Dadonov.
If you're willing to move Dadonov, why not?
Yeah. I mean, if you can get Vancouver to take Dadonov, but you're going to have to give them like two first rounders into Dadonov, because half that's paying for Dadonov to go away.
Yeah, Brisson.
I just don't see that, man. Like stranger things have happened, but we start galaxy braining these deals, and it's part of the reason why fantasy hockey is amazing, because it gets people interested in the sport. You learn the players around the league. You become invested in it.
Yeah, but
God damn if it doesn't make people think some crazy things that they can pull off, because this is real. This is the real world. This isn't fantasy hockey.
They've been operating in fantasy hockey for 4 years here. Like, the team went to the Stanley Cup final, and since then they've added Pacioretty, Stone, Pietrangelo, and Eichel. Like, that's fantasy hockey right there.
But it's with real ramifications
for no reason. Like, Vezina winner, don't need him, but we'll take Mikael Häkkinen. Like Schmidt, Stastny, Haula, Miller, like the names go on and on. Maybe they can. Like, I'm not going to say never. I don't think it's horribly likely, but I do think they're probably going to try and add at the deadline, because if you watch this team on paper, I don't think, or I guess not watch them on paper, if you watch them on the ice, I don't think they are what they appear to be on paper at the moment. So maybe you do need to add.
Well, I have concerns about that. I mean, there was a great article up on the SinBin.vegas website about where's the heart? Like, and you feel that, like it just, I'm very interested to see. I got a conversation coming tomorrow that'll clue you in on afterwards. It's pretty interesting. I think that probably give me some insight to a lot of things, but I just don't think the feeling is the same. And I know this is so old and repetitive and like, revisionist history that it's not the same. Well, it's never the same. It really isn't. It's always changing, everybody. But I don't know, man. I just don't see enough smiles right now compared to past years, I guess. Even like the past couple of years when I was covering the team, you would just see them pull off these victories and be carefree and chucking flamingos around and laughing as they get off the ice. And I just don't see that as often now. And I know it's been a long year due to the injuries and everything they faced, but where is your heartbeat with this club right now? I mean, Stone's out. Pietrangelo was a new guy coming in. Like, your heartbeat is truly that misfit line and Braden, McNabb, and Theodore. That's kind of what's left. And I don't know that they're really the heartbeat anymore. As much as I like them to be, as you hear snowplows going by in the background, potentially here from St. Louis, I'm not sure that they are, and that's kind of where the team's at, right? Like
there's also
there are huge pieces to it.
The
crowd is meh. Well, the crowd had their heart ripped out with Marc-Andre Fleury, and I don't know what it's going to take to get over that other than winning a Stanley Cup.
I think a lot of it, it's in a weird way, and I'm not going to completely use the term, but stale is a term that I feel like is kind of starting to seep in different ways. It's like the home record isn't what it used to be. So the expectation of them winning every single game at home is kind of starting to disappear.
Right. Let me cut in real quick. It's old hat now for visiting teams to come to Vegas. They're not going bananas at Cosmo until 4 a.m. any longer. Like they might do that for their rookie party, but otherwise they're coming in to play hockey. That luster has finally worn off.
Or at least that's happening after the game as opposed to the night before, which is what it probably was. But I think they just got the award for the best in-game presentation. And I don't think there's any debate. Like, I'm going up to Seattle in a month or so. And I'm interested to see how it looks there, because it's the same people that put together Vegas's. But
it is.
Aaron, they have the best in-game presentation. However, no matter what your in-game presentation is, if you've been to it 40, 50, 60 times, which a lot of people in that building have, there has to be more to it. You have to be changing things and, manipulating things. And it sounds ridiculous, but I think something as little as finding a new goal song that fits this team, or finding a new "We Won" song that fits this team, or something that can find a way to kind of put an identity on this team that is really a mismatch, or it's good players. I'm not saying it's not, but they aren't a team the way that first Golden Knights team was, the way that the team was certainly going into the second playoffs, and then in a big way what they were coming into year 3 after they had the bullshit happen to them. Now you were a team. You're all together. It feels like a lot of different pieces. You still have the misfits trying to grab 2017 and hang on to that. You have a goalie I don't really know where his fit is, because he's unique. He's a one-of-a-kind guy, and he's not the guy that was before. Eichel trying to get back from injury and prove himself to the league and to his team and to his, everyone. Pietrangelo kind of starting to become the face of the team by default in many ways.
Yes.
And then the real face of the team isn't there because he's potentially sitting on LTIR so that you can have the other new guy. It's very odd. And there's not a group of players that came up together. You don't have that line of youngsters that's this is our young whatever. They just seem like there's not an identity, and I think they need something like that, and I don't know how you find that.
And that's where developing from within comes into play, but there's none of that right now.
There's a few, White Cloud and Haig, and
I know that White Cloud and Haig are the two. Those are the two. Colasar fits that bill too, I guess, as well.
Yeah,
but
you can argue
Peyton Krebs traded away, I mean, Alex Tuch was a huge part of this team. Like
100%.
heartbeat, fun factor, Nick Holden, fun factor, Revo, fun factor. Like
It
the fun committee is gone completely. That was
totally gone.
actually a thing that we reported on in the bubble
Yeah,
was the fun committee. And I
yeah.
believe it was comprised, if I'm not mistaken, of Nick Holden, Ryan Reeves, and who am I forgetting the third one out of this group? But
Be Nate.
anyway, and yeah, so Nate Schmidt too. So it is different. But I like, where's Krebs? He's gone. Where's Suzuki? He's gone. Brandstrom. Well, that's probably a good play to get rid of Brandstrom because I don't think he's going to play in the NHL like long term. But that's missing. And this is kind of what filters through from teams as they go through different iterations is that you do have these players who have really been through the trenches with an organization. And this isn't to downplay Whitecloud and Haig, but they played 1 year together in the American League. You know, that's a lot different than players that come in and play 2-3 seasons. They're at the cusp. They go to development camp for 3 years of juniors, and then they come out and they do regular camp and stuff. In some ways, I think that the maybe the greatest example of it is Logan Thompson.
Yeah,
Having come to development camp and then, you know, kind of going and doing his own thing, but still being on the radar and coming back and signing and working his way from Henderson. Like, to me, that's about as dyed in the wool of a Golden Knights player as you can find in a lot of ways.
And I think the fan base loves him for that reason.
I agree with you. Yes. And I think that's why the fan base pulls for Whitecloud and Haig in them. But
And
man,
LT
was
mine and Theodore.
Yes. Yeah. But man, LT, like, I'm telling you, man, he could really be a crowd favorite. Like, he's going to be a Golden Knight full time at some point, whether it's next year, it could be the rest of this year. The way it's trending, it might be, but next year, who knows? He looked really good.
Yeah.
And I know that
he's a great personality too. I think that hasn't really shown through yet. I think that will, if he starts getting game after game and he's on the podium after every game. He's a personality, and I think he's a personality on the ice and off the ice. Like this last game, I saw him kind of chatting with the ref and, you know, messing around with him, and, you know, he pokes pucks away. He's very confident. He's a talker, which I think that's going to start to come through with some of the players hearing, and we'll get to know some of the things he's saying out there. But I don't think that's not happening this year.
No. Well, if Leonard is truly out,
well, he
which is day to day, he practiced, you know.
I mean, he was in there, like, and they were basically saying, like, I don't think Friday or Saturday, but it seems like he's on, you know, on the other side of the weekend. I think they're more than 2 or 3 games away.
We'll see. I mean, if you've got a labrum like that and a bum shoulder, you're one bad day away from being out longer term. And that's why if there's reports that they're sniffing around, these things don't come out of thin air, man.
No,
no. There has to be a fear there at least. But I would like to actually give people hope, though, that I think Thompson has a pretty high ceiling here. Like, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not because he played for the Brandon Wheat Kings, although it helped him get his foot in the door. He can really play. And there's things I would love to coach him, because I think there's a couple things that he could do much better than he currently does. But they're minor things. People will like him because he is athletic. He's dynamic. He can move almost to his detriment. Sometimes he's a little bit overactive. He's all arms and legs, man, but people love that. You know, from a visual standpoint, that's attractive to watch. Whereas, you know, I think Brossoit's done a serviceable job this year.
Sure.
But he lost the Kings game on a couple goals that went up and over him that I think were definitely stoppable goals.
Especially from the last game when Colorado was missing some of those shots. And, you know, I'm not sure how much these guys are watching TNT, but they were making a big deal about it. And then sure enough, the very next game, boom, 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 3 above his shoulder.
You see this, you know, I mean, you're off your angle a little bit. You get roasted these days. Mike Smith he's been blasted the last couple games because he's been hanging out on his knees. And then even like, this is something that people watching goalie interference may not know this. You guys probably do. Okay. But I'm going to say it again. But when you walk in an NHL dressing room on the day of a game, there's always bulletin board material, and it's not quotes from the other team. Okay. It's not the opposing team saying we're going to run their heads through the walls. And then everybody goes, we're going to go get them. And we're going to get them. yeah, we're gonna get the pitchforks, we're gonna get them, and we're all amped up. And no, it's
They
actually
you don't have that usually.
no.
I don't think there's going to be a quote about the Coyotes that has been said. I don't think we're going to have that one.
Yeah, it's tactical things. It's systems. It's what they do on the power play, the penalty kill. But there's always one board up there that shows where where every goal has gone in throughout the season on the goaltender you're going to face, both goaltenders. And I'll give you a great example. Toronto, Jack Campbell just got roasted high glove side 3 times last night. Patrick Laine did it twice. Boquist did it once. Well, when you look at the shot map on Jack Campbell, there's no surprise to that.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. Like Brossoit has a tendency to shrink a bit. Kempe goal, he's not square, goes up over his shoulder. And then you look at the breakaway opportunity that Dadonov has right over. Again, he's shrinking down. And like, people know these things. And if you're not dynamic enough, or at least a reactionary enough goaltender to make those saves, it becomes burdensome the more you play like that. So,
it's a good question. Is there a site for that kind of information?
There is. It's called Instat. It's a pay site. I have access to it because I'm a professional at this.
Yeah.
But it is available there. I'm not sure about a free website where it is.
I haven't seen one that has that in-depth of information. I think that, when we get to playoff time and we can start going back, I'll usually kind of go through and look at what types of goals have been scored against these types of teams and these goalies. But during a regular season, like, I don't have the time to put in every single one. But yeah, Instat does exist, and it's a paid site. So
I'm going to try to find, as we continue speaking, I'm going to try to double task here and pull up the shot map for Brossoit. And I will attempt to screenshot that and send it to you so that we could show it.
Well, I was going to ask you, while you're trying to do that, you reminded me to bring up Logan Thompson's skate blade falling off twice in the same period. Was it the same period, or definitely the same game? But what you had a story about that, or what was it about that?
Well, yeah, it doesn't happen often. Like the blades used to be, it wouldn't go anywhere. Like those blades were not coming out. And now the way it works is the blades have a quick change mechanism to them that it can happen a couple different ways. Okay. So I had a blade pop out because I had a shot hit directly on the toe of the skate, and the impact just popped the blade out essentially. But Thompson's heel just grazed the post in the proper way.
Yeah.
And it came out. And I'll tell you what, man, like he went down like a sack of potatoes. You saw it. It was ugly when it happened.
It's not going to work. It doesn't cut into the ice.
No. And what happens is you first feel that your blade is short. Okay. It's like you have one shoe on because your blade isn't there, and your blade's about a half inch or so.
Yeah.
And the moment you feel that you're missing that half inch, you go, oh shit, because you know what's coming next. And it's going to be the plastic of the blade hitting the ice with no grip whatsoever. And your foot's just going to go sliding out. Like it's just like bang, bang. Oh, I'm sure. Oh no. Oh no.
God, this isn't good.
And yeah, please let that whistle blow.
Bench. That's always fun when you get to see the players skating to the bench and they're like pushing off on that, or somebody's jabbing them with their, pitchforking them to the bench. And yes, John,
you get the buddies that are pushing them along. And then you've got
times in the bubble.
Well, Leonard skates just fell apart.
Oh
yeah. Like he broke. Leonard skates were so old that they just fell apart. Like he does not like to change his skates. He doesn't sharpen his blades often. I think the nut that held his in, because his actually has a screw in the back of the skate that holds his blade in place. They're not quick release. It was the funniest one was when it happened to Tuukka Rask, and he threw the blade at the referee, which was very dangerous. He threw a knife at a referee. He wouldn't
stop the game, right?
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to.
No.
Like, dude, your equipment failed. That's on you. Yes. Like, that, we're not stopping the game for you, man.
Directly in the rule book. They are not supposed to stop the game.
Yeah. Is a great example of players that just don't know rules at all. And God, that was funny.
That's a lot.
I mean, it was bad, but it was funny.
That is a lot of players. I need to tell you that this episode and all episodes of Goalie Interference are brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. And with that, we're going to go to our first guest we've had in a while. We haven't had a caller.
Oh, I can't wait.
A minute. But first, I need to switch the banner so we actually see his face, because that would be bad. So there we go. Let's go to Nick. What's up, Nick?
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm
So
great.
the question I originally wanted to ask was kind of around who the energy guy on the team is, but I feel like we kind of touched on that pretty well. But I was listening to Ken's podcast, and he brought up an interesting idea of putting Stone with Carlson and kind of forming a line around that idea. So if I could ask that question instead.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it previously. They did put Carlson between Pacioretty and Stone when they went to create the super line two seasons ago.
Right at the beginning of the bubble, right out of the bubble. They did it for a couple of games in those exhibition games, and then they did it for a very short period of time at the beginning of the Chicago series. And that was also the same time when Stevenson played wing, and it dissipated quickly.
It did. But boy, it was heralded as being the biggest super line in the National Hockey League. I don't mind messing around with it like that, but I think that history has just played out that the Misfits are a magic combo, and it was okay for a bit. That what you look at with that is that then do you put Marchessault and Smith with Eichel? Is that your pairing?
Yep.
And I mean, in some ways, I like that because you're feeding Smith one-timers, you're letting those two skate, all of them can move. I don't mind that. I just think that to really get the best out of Stone, you got to have a great skater between them. And that's not to say Carlson's a good skater, but he can't fly like Eichel or like Stevenson can.
He
and
skates
that's
a different way. He can move. He never gets tired. He can get to speed. He's not an explosive skater like both Stevenson and Eichel are.
Yeah, we're talking about Carlson. Carlson is what I would call an efficient skater.
Yeah,
I think the skating aspect is the key to Stone and having somebody that can play. Even when he was in Ottawa, I mean, Colin White can hardly stick handle, street hockey stuff, but the guy can skate pretty well. And, Stoner got him a pretty big contract because of that. That's the key. I mean, I think all those players are interchangeable, but I think realistically, when I look at it, I have no doubt in my mind that it's Pacioretty, Eichel, Stone. That's my line up top. And Stevenson from there, I still think Stevenson's going to end up being something of a spare part here, even though I think I like him best at third line center if you have to slot him in. But given the way injuries have gone, I think he could play wing on any of those top lines as well.
Yeah, I was just curious because it seems like we are back in the situation where we have 7 people we're trying to fit into the top 6 again, and with injuries and LTR situations, you don't know what's going to happen, and it seems like you are going to be down a misfit. So if it's going to get busted up through trade anyways, why not stick him down there if and when he comes back this season? So, anyways, 1-on-1, ask the question.
No, it's interesting. I mean, your point is true. I mean, like, look at the most durable players in the team. It's been the Misfits. I mean, aside from Carlson's broken foot, man, those guys have been rock solid. It's the top line you worry about.
Than everyone else.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, Riley Smith is, I guess, at a couple of years at this point. So is Marshy, but Patches, who knows? Like he hasn't been healthy in playoffs for the Golden Knights. It's in 2 years.
No,
it's always been in and out. Stone's been battling stuff like.
And that ain't going to change. At least it doesn't seem like it. He's going to be battling the entire way.
If degenerative is the word, that scares me. So
I don't know if you heard our Twitter space yesterday with our resident doctor, Dr. Pinniger. He actually kind of degenerative didn't scare him as much as it scares you and I.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah,
that's good.
He basically said that the way, like, there's different ways you can use degenerative, and the normal way that they use it, we think of it as like it's disintegrating and it will eventually fall apart. I think that's how most of us hear it. It's like it's rusting and this, dock is eventually going to fall in the water. That's not how he says most doctors use it. He said it's more like there was an issue prior to there being a bigger issue. That's what would be considered degenerative. And
Gotcha.
he didn't seem to think that if, I was like, that sounds career threatening to me. And he's like, nah, I wouldn't say that.
Good. Well,
so yeah,
that's reassuring. So
here's my concern. You got anything else, Nick? I don't want to.
No, that was really it. It kind of all seems like it hinges on what Stone's gonna be able to do if and when he comes back for this season, about kind of how you blow it out. I guess one question to leave with at the end, in case you need another one, is if Stone doesn't come back for the year, where does that put them in terms of contention, and is it even worth it fighting to go into the playoffs at that point just to jockey for draft position?
Certainly. I'm gonna put there we go. Oh, he dropped off himself. There's a couple of different ways to look at that. Like, if you simply told me at the beginning of the season they're gonna have Mark Stone out and Jack Eichel in, is this still a cup contender? I'd be like, well, absolutely. Like, they were a cup contender before. Why would they not be now? The reason why you would lean saying maybe they're not is because A, they have other injuries that have gotten in the way, and B, they just haven't looked it. Like, they just have not looked it. And now you're also putting a lot of, concern on what you're going to get out of Jack Eichel and what is he going to look like in his first playoffs and in his first year in this system. To go back to your point on Eichel, Pacioretty, and Stone being together, that pretty much means the Misfits have to be together behind them. And that's going to essentially mean a third line of what you called spare parts. To me, that's basically setting yourself up for the exact same thing you've been in the past. And I think you're actually taking a step back defensively across the board. I don't think that top line would be as defensively efficient, especially with the injuries. And then with Eichel in the new system, I don't think they would be defensively efficient. I don't like a Stevenson, Janmark, Dadonov line defensively. I don't really particularly love that. And I think you're just basically setting yourself up to be a team that's going to play higher scoring games because you can get some goals on that first line. But if you don't, what is your team? If that line goes a single game without a goal, what are you getting? And that's why I never have liked Pacioretty, Stone, Eichel together. I've never liked it. The feeling of this team, Misfits have to go away. I think you have to find a way to utilize those three players in a different way, to get more out of them. I don't think they've been bad at all, but they're not an elite number one line like they were the first year. Yes, they're good. The chemistry's there, and they're living proof that chemistry's a real thing, but they're not a shutdown line anymore, and they're not a goal a game line anymore. They can be at different games, but through a playoff series, you're not getting 7 goals. I just don't think.
To me, there's two things it hinges on. Jonathan Marchessault has been as consistent as can be since he's been with the Golden Knights, if you ask me. I really think production-wise, I think he's more responsible now than he's ever been in his career. I mean, I watched Marchessault throwing pucks all around the ice in the American League and in his early years in the NHL from front row seat behind him. Okay, and I don't see that nearly as much anymore. Right? It's got to be a special affair for him to start chucking pucks all over the ice and hope plays. Now, you're also not going to see Will Karlsson pot 43 goals ever again. He's probably more like a 20-goal guy. That's what he is. I think that line depends on Riley Smith and how he's going more than anything. Now, the caveat to that is that Riley Smith, to me, is a huge part of the club. Where would he fit in the mix on the third line if you split them up? I'm not as concerned about top. Do you put Stevenson second line right wing with Karlsson and Marchessault?
Probably not.
I'm just these are things that you start to wonder if you're trying to spice anything up and spread it out a little bit. I just think that line is at the price point that you've got those 3 players for your second line. It's pretty good. It's really good. But I don't think they're the best second line in the league by any stretch. And that's where it's tough because the money is weighted so heavily to your top line and your top pair defenders that it makes life hard on you up front to grab all that depth.
I think you're making life easy. I think you're just making life easy on the other team. Like, there are some lines that are so good as first lines, the perfection line in Boston at different
Well,
times.
they even split them up this year and got more production out of them too, you know?
There are certain lines that can be so good that there's just nothing you can do to stop them. I have a very hard time believing that Pacioretty, Stone, Eichel will be that instantly in a playoff series. And because I don't think they're going to be the perfect connection together, I think you're making it easy for a team to say, let's throw our best defensive line at that, make that a zero-sum game. We're not going to score. They're not going to score. They'll never beat us. And I think they're right. You probably will not get a win if you get 0 points out of that line. And so why would you put yourself in a position where that's the way you're going to go? I think you're just asking for struggles. And they may give them up. I don't think they're going to be great defensively.
Well, I think no matter what, you're going to face top pairings, and they're going to come after whoever Eichel's centering, regardless.
Right. So create different matchups that are going to put yourself in a position where you can get matchups that you like down your roster, which you're not going to get. Like, okay, great, they have their third pair out. We have Stevenson, Dadonov, and Janmark. Like,
well, that's where you start to wonder. I mean, if that's the direction you want to go, you blow it up. Like, I mean, you can chuck Pacioretty and Eichel together, and then you put, I don't know, Smith on the right side. Then you go for your second line, and all of a sudden you wheel out Marchessault, Stevenson, and Stone. And what do you think of that? You know, like there are things that Pete DeBoer can do, but you also wonder, you know, kind of this late in the game with people coming back from injuries and everything, what they trot out is probably what they're going to end up going with.
Which could be a problem because there doesn't seem to be a lot of chemistry with the way they're playing. Let's bring Jason in on that one, because I think that we were kind of talking about this before, and the Eichel Tower has its new goal.
The Eichel Tower.
Immediately. He breaks it instantly upon coming on the show. But like, it does seem to, I think, all of us watching that it's like, you know what? This team is not cohesive at the moment. And I'm trying to switch the lines up and find a different way. But they got to find some cohesion with what they have right now, right?
I mean, if you're spending all that money, right? And Mike said this earlier, how can you not play them together? I mean, they're three of the most powerful weapons in all of hockey, especially in the Western Conference.
I'm not trying to maximize what they do. I'm trying to maximize what my team does. Yes, you will get more points out of Eichel and Stone and Pacioretty, especially in a regular season, playing them together. But as a whole, you're not going to get more points for the team. I just don't think you're going to maximize your potential, because I think a lot like an Eichel, the reason you pay $10 million to an Eichel is because he can take a player that doesn't make $10 million and drag him along.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not rolling three lines. I mean, you need both those top six to play heavy minutes. You don't want the fourth line out there much, other than 7 or 8 minutes in a playoff series.
Here's what it comes down to for me. You're paying those three guys to be the three best players on your team up front, and you need the three best players on your team, the guys that are making close to $10 million. Patches isn't at that level, but he's pretty high. You need that top line to be better than the other team's top line. That's it. End of story. So if you're going up against the Flames, you need them to be better than Gaudreau, Lindholm, and
they can have two of them together and throw another piece, and those guys can be better. And now I have another piece down my lineup that can take advantage of the rest of the game. Like, I just think it makes it so easy on the other team. Like, I don't want to play the Kings if that's the plan. I have no interest of playing against Kopitar or Danault. If I have all my lines stacked up on the top, they're just going to take them out.
But you have to have something that can produce. And I don't know mixing those up is going to have the same result. We haven't seen that often. And when we do, it always ends up reverting back because that's what's been known and works.
Impatient.
So I'm trying to have my optimism here with it. But in my eyes, when you have those top three, they didn't bring Jack Eichel in to center Riley Smith and someone else, or however you want to make this happen, or Chandler Stevens. They brought him in to center Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone because that's supposed to be the best line in hockey. That's what the thought process is, and it's supposed to be not just the best line 5-on-5. Like, listen, if they don't score 5-on-5, whatever. But those three guys on the ice, they better score 5-on-4. That's the
Well,
metric to me
play
that
together
I'm really
5 on
watching
5
here.
to score 5 on 4. Why am I playing? Like, what do you mean if they don't score 5 on 5 on 5?
Because just to what you said, if you're line matching, if teams are matching up, if those lines cancel out, which happens often, it happens with McKinnon. Believe it or not, McKinnon doesn't score every game. You
That's
know,
why
like if you cancel them out 5 on 5, that's a win. But when things get nasty is when you get to the power play and those teams crush you because they score no matter what. And even the perfection line in Boston 5 on 5, when that line was together, you start chucking it to Pasternak the backside and he
Are
scores.
you
Like,
telling me that the goal for the Golden Knights is to bank on their power play?
yes, it
That what
has
you're
to be.
telling me?
It's not bank, and I'm not telling you that's bank on it because you have to be able to chuck in a goal or two 5 on 5. You're hoping that comes from anywhere. That doesn't have to come from your top. It has to come from anywhere. But when you get a power play, when you get 3 power plays a game, you have to score one to play out. Like you have to. And that's Eichel to me wasn't. You bring him in because he's a shiny object. He's the best centerman available, but he's brought in to fix the power play. Period. End of story. If you ask me. I don't see any other way
What
around
about Dadonov?
Well, he was brought in to be a Band-Aid power play.
We
that
were told
Band-Aid
that.
turned out to be not latex. It turned out to be like, I don't even, it was like you're putting on like a cloth out of a trash can or something. I don't know. It hasn't worked, man. Like it just hasn't. But like, look at the amount of negativity surrounding this, like power play. We're done. Like, well, you have not seen the Golden Knights power play in the iteration it's meant to be.
And
the problem is we may not see it.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you expect to see it before the regular season's even over?
That's
even
a
if you
great
do,
question.
Is it just going to click immediately? Boom! Yes, best power play league.
It better, but that's why. Like, the big plan was that hopefully, you get Eichel back now. Stone's in lineup, everything, and you got this run up to it. It's all been tossed in the blender this year with the injuries.
I don't think that was the big plan for a second. Like,
what's that?
And then
that they were going to have Eichel come back in and Stone was going to play with him. I don't think they have Jack Eichel if they knew that Stone was not going to be hurt.
You think from before the year even began, this was going to happen?
No, I think the second Mark Stone got hurt in Game 2, they got all this information about what this is and what they're going to have to be to fix it, and they said he ain't making it an entire season, so let's go buy Jack Eichel.
They definitely kicked the tires in the offseason.
This deal had been in motion for so long. I mean, I said that this deal was going to happen in June. Like, I can't buy that. I can't. I don't believe that's the case. We can disagree because neither of us have evidence on this at all.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't think that's the plan. I think the plan is, man, we get Eichel because we can put him with Stone. And I really, truly believe we're going to get this player. We will get the player and we will make it work because we've done it before. Look at us last year. We made it work all year by jockeying players back and forth between Henderson and Vegas and saving cap space and $3 here and $8 there and dressing underneath the limit of the roster and doing all these things to get under the cap. It's when you do that, when you go through that process, you start to have some hubris about you thinking you can do anything. And I think this was another case of get the player and we'll figure it out from there.
If you have even the remotest thought, that's not a word either. If you have a dynamicist thought that you're going to get Jack Eichel, why in the flying fuck would you trade for Dadonov? What are you doing? Like, that's probably my biggest evidence. And then it goes beyond that. It's like, okay, so then you did that. Then he gets hurt. Then you trade for Eichel. Then magically they switch the exact day that they need to switch. And then they'll probably both play Game 1 of the playoffs. Like,
they didn't know that they were going to be able to get Eichel.
I know I got the tinfoil hat on. I get that. But, like, it seems so convenient to me.
Well, they didn't know that they were going to get Eichel. They wanted him. They were going to make everything move they could. But they got Dadonov to try to throw at that.
Wait a minute. Doesn't Dadonov kill off the idea of getting Eichel because there's a salary cap? Unless we have some injury that we can get to, and then we'll do it.
But this is where, general managers try to cover their tracks by making sure they've got extra pieces if they can do it. And that's where Dadonov at the start, without having Eichel, you're hoping for somebody who's done it before there. Like, I know that's crazy. It's hoping, but it is. There's a lot of that happens, and you rely on what you see.
But
So,
Mike, why did they have to blow him up so much? I mean, they said continuously, this is a guy we've been tracking and we've wanted for years.
why? Because the people that traded for him want to prove their worth. This happens all the time. Like, we're not going to say, well, he sucked in Ottawa. He was only good in Florida because he was with Huberdeau and Barkov. But we think we have the players that are going to make this guy successful again and not make us look like fools for taking on 2 years worth of $5 million and a player that's really questionable in this league.
Yeah, but we were
That's
told
why.
the same thing. We were told the same thing when they acquired Paul Stastny. We were told the same things when they acquired Tomas Tatar. I mean, these are players that weren't in the mix after a calendar year. So, I mean, it's tough for us to believe what the general manager says all the time when they backtrack every year.
Well, that's
I
what
go by actions.
you have to sell excitement, man. Like when you get somebody like, I mean, Stastny was a good, there's times I wish they still had Stastny as a third line center,
Yeah.
you know,
They
who
paid
could,
him much.
yeah. So
One last thing on the centers. Okay. I've seen it. We've all seen it. The last 2 years, a center being the center of Pacioretty and Stone, they don't score. Okay, so it was Stevenson last year, and then it was Stasny the year before. That line didn't score. I mean, there's a reason why they went out and got a guy who can score.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I think. There's no doubt in my mind Eichel's got to get to play between Pacioretty and Eichel. End of story. Like, I can go down any rabbit hole, and I know we can argue what we think the best lineups are, but that's what I think he's there for. So
We'll see.
There's a good question. Do you think the deal always revolved around Tuch? You think it was Shea? Man, I think anybody's possible when you're talking about contracts and when you're talking about trades. Tuch was a very attractive piece to a lot of teams.
And especially Buffalo.
Yeah, it made sense there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a player like Tuch's actually a guy who was, you're not going to find many players that are like overly joyed of going to Buffalo and being a Sabre.
He was
right now. Tuch grew up liking that team as a kid, man. He's from Syracuse, New York.
You're gonna buy this. They're doing the same thing as Dadonov coming to Vegas. Like, he is so awesome. Like, he has to say that. He doesn't want to go play.
You don't have to. Like, you have a hometown pull to your areas, man. If you grew up with a team's jersey and you get an opportunity to play there, and here's the thing about Buffalo. Once players play there, they retain a decent amount. They like it there. Like, they're treated well. I know it snows like crazy and everything, and it's been goofy with the ownership and all that. But it's a pretty, like, if you're like a straight up blue collar dude from that type of place, like, you can fit in. And I know Tuch
fit in pretty well in Vegas. It was going quite well here. I ate at his restaurant.
Yeah, Tucky took advantage of it, man. Why wouldn't you? So.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you be happy going to an organization that you're actually going to play the amount of minutes that you should? His skill was better. His skill is better than Carlson. It's better than Riley. It's better than Marchessault. It's better
his
than
next contract's going to be bigger than what it was because of that, because he's going to play first, second line minutes.
And this team wouldn't use him in an elevated role. They only did a few times. And like you guys brought up earlier, they're impatient, so they took him back. They went out and got Stone, so his role in the top six wasn't around anymore.
Yep.
Do you honestly, like, do you think he's going to be a massive superstar in Buffalo?
Well, I don't. I think he'll be a one of those Sabres that they'll remember forever, but I don't know if he's going to be a league superstar.
Depends how long he's there. If he's there through that team becoming decent again and good again, oh, yeah.
Does your team become decent and good again through Alex Tuch being one of your best players?
I think there's a possibility of that. He's right in that window.
What the hell were they doing with him here?
Well, they fleeced Minnesota by getting him. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but then what did they do with him? He was never put in a position to succeed. Like,
I mean, I'll tell you what, I would have really liked Tuch on the right side with Pacioretty and Eichel. That I would have liked.
Love that.
Like, we can't go back to that, but man, I would have loved that.
Dadonov, idiots.
But again, the one comment that bothered me the most about Tuch is the very last comment of, it was the getaway day from last year, okay? and somebody asked him, Alex, are you looking for a more elevated role? And his response was just it just made me crazy. He said, I'll do whatever I need on this team. Whatever this team needs, I'll do. And Ken and I have gone over this 100 times. I wanted to hear Alex be selfish and say, no, I want a top 6 position. I'm that talented. I get paid a certain amount. I want to play in the top 6.
Hockey guy, man. Hockey guys. This is what we have to do, not to rock the boat. But you do see that occasionally where somebody will say, yeah, this isn't where I fit. Jacob Trouba did this with Winnipeg several years ago. I'm a right shot D. We have too many of them here. I want to be traded. I'm never going to hit my ceiling here. And I remember when he did that, I was like, what? Like, how old are you? I was like, all right, dude. Well, things are pretty good in New York for him right now.
Yeah, how'd that go? Yeah.
Pretty good. So it doesn't happen often, but you have to remember that people like playing in Vegas, man. Like we just said it, like, look how much fun Tuch was having. Look
especially Alex Tuch. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you got a chance to play in a city that people can only dream of living in, that really
you're
like
the
that.
Superstar. Like that guy was a superstar in this town.
Yep. Absolutely. You're not going to end up on the front page of the paper in Buffalo because you go to the Anchor Bar and get some wings. It's a little different, but
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to this. Our intern was I'm assuming cleaning. I don't know what he
what
was doing.
What does that mean?
I think he
is it his chores?
He says, yeah, that would make sense. He says he was cleaning out a closet, whatever. But he came across a picture of Mike from 2005. You had just been added to the Wranglers, just straight out of college, right?
Yeah. I don't know whether this was my first or second year picture with them. I think it was my first year. It's pretty bad.
I think it was too. Based on the stats, we think it's a first year. So we went back in the archives. We dug back through the archives and we found a picture of me and a picture of Jason, both from 2005. Here they are. Look at those.
Oh, yeah, that was my first year.
Look at those beauties.
Man, I still can't see your shoulders. Wow.
I don't have any. I never had shoulders.
I don't know. What are you holding up?
Where are the flowing locks? Are you holding a root beer?
No, that's an adult beverage.
Is it? You're 21 in 2005?
I was 24.
Okay. You're older.
All right. So where were all of us at this stage? Because obviously this is where I was right here.
I was at the University of Missouri. MIZ-ZOU. That's right.
Yeah, there we go. So Jason
was holding up sort of paper that was probably shit.
I was gonna say, is that like some failing grade there, or what is that?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm happy about this or upset about this, or I'm not sure. I'm not. Why would I take a picture of a? I don't know. I have no idea.
I was in Boston, Mike. That was me. My tenure at WEEI. So obviously, after the shows, we would go out and enjoy.
Yeah, I was going to say this appears to be some sort of after work party in which you still have the tie on.
Actually, this is New York City. I was in some club that I had to wear, some nice clothes. So
Tyler's right. That is the only.
It was an acapella competition, and Jason just decided to bring the heat, and this was post show.
I want to know what is what did they tell you to pose in this picture? Like, what is that? What is that look?
Me?
No, yours is like, I'm here to take a photo. No, wait, what is
that's right.
Like, what is Jason's? He's got like a half shit-eating grin, but the grin's didn't quite come through. Like, what's happening here?
I think so. It was a lovely lady who took that picture, and she might have been flirting or something like that.
Oh,
so I was
it's just a sexy pose.
Yeah. So one of those things.
Oh god!
Can you recreate that?
I couldn't have gotten a date if I wanted it. Look at that.
Can you recreate that real quick? Go ahead.
I think I should get the sideburns back. That's good. That's really good. Did you guys get the shot? I texted you guys a shot map. Did you happen? Can you put that up? Do you think? Are you able to transfer that there to the old PC and toss it up on the Goalie scam here?
Mike, have you ever heard this before? But that picture, you look a little bit like Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
Pratt.
Yeah, Chris Pratt. He's one of the.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
could see that. I could.
he's
see
on
that.
Parks and Recreation. He's in Moneyball. He's in
Oh,
Guardians
that was the
of the
guy that was in
Galaxy.
Jurassic World or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'll take it. Not pop punk, man. I would have been metal. The
You have
those
to. You have to
sideburns were
read the
something,
comments.
man.
Not everyone
Like,
can see the comments if you don't.
I think
read
I
them.
let my goatee go for like a solid 2 months that year because we kept winning, which was silly because I don't like superstitions, but I did back then. Somebody asked if I played any midnight games. I did not play any of the midnight games. I was called up for both of them. I was in the American League in both years. I didn't get the opportunity to. I was there 2 days before we were set to play the midnight game. And I remember our head coach, Glenn Gulletson, encouraging us to go out the night before to throw our body clocks off. It's the only time in my life I ever heard a coach say, "Hey, fellas, hey," because Goalie had come in and he'd do this here. He'd do the 6-shooters, eh? And he'd come in and he'd be talking like this. And, "Hey, fellas, hey, we just we're on a pretty good run here, fellas. Okay." And I tell you what, I think tonight here in Vegas, it'd be probably a good idea to go out and, maybe have a drink or two, just a couple, and then go back, but stay out. And then, you put your head down 2 in the morning or so, and we'll come in and we'll play that midnight game, eh, boys? And then,
Did it work?
Oh, dude, I think we won them. I was gone. Like I said, I was called up for both. I can't remember, but it was, "Hey, Goalie, hey, Evgenii right here, boys." Like, way you talk. Okay, so here you go.
Was his hair perfect
Perfect lobster claws. Oh yeah. So what we're looking at here is the last 50 games of Laurent Brossoit. And as you can see, this is the heat map. This is where pucks have gone in the net. Now it doesn't account.
I could see Danault's goal right there.
Right. And it's, listen, the ones that are along the ice there, like there's one that looks like it would basically be his left pad. You have to take into account, like, those are empty net layup goals where the goalie isn't in the net, but it shows you that moving right to left is more difficult for Brossoit. And it also shows you that high glove is something that is actually available for him. So it's high. Like, and there's another diagram that I could get you guys that's a little bit better that would really show it, where actual number of shots where they've gone, like the Jack Campbell one is like just straight high glove and above the pad, whereas Brossoit is higher towards the top of the net than the others, than some goalies at least. So, but those are always on locker room. They're up in the locker room where all these goals have gone in on goaltenders, and people take a look at that stuff.
When they're they go back, they take a shot. It looks like they're trying to aim in that corner. It doesn't hit. Then they go back to their bench and they pull out the old, the iPad or whatever. Are they looking at that map, or are they looking at plays that led up to goals in other, in previous games?
Typically, they're just looking back at their last shift, and they're trying to find either they're looking back at a last shift, or they're looking at a previous penalty kill or power play to try to find something they can do a little better with it. That's funny.
Even with that knowledge, VGK will still miss wide. They do love in that.
So here's, like, somebody said bring back midnight games. I just saw that. Race fan rocks. I have actually heard, and this is before I departed the franchise, that I don't think VGK is going to play a midnight game, but I would not be surprised if Henderson plays one. I know that had at least been discussed. They've overhauled a lot of the staff. A lot of people have left the organization within that side of things. A lot of people left the organization across the board, but that's typical of any new business, I guess. But
you're being nice.
But I do think there's a chance that the Henderson team, a very good chance the Henderson team will at minimum entertain that thought. And I would say, if you want to see it happen, make a push for it, because that's not hard to pull off in the American League. That's an easy one. NHL, that's a different ballgame with TV
I was going to
ask you. Stuff.
Well, what about the Players Association? Is that something that they wouldn't sign off on for the
PHPA
level?
Could care less. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, the AHL, don't get me wrong, the AHL is unionized, man, which is a great thing for the players. That's why minor league hockey players can actually make a living and can actually, not eat sandwiches after every meal and live 7 people deep in an apartment like baseball.
You have fun apartment.
You can make a good living in minor league hockey. because of the union. But the union's not going to care if you're playing a midnight game. The union will do whatever the league thinks is something that'll make us some cash and put more in our pockets and be good.
But what about the NHL level?
Well, the NHL, I just don't think it's ever logistical because of TV deals. I think that's just too important. I don't think you could ever get AT&T to sign off on a midnight game. The ratings would be, why would they even bother carrying it, honestly? That's something you do truly to super serve your fans. And it works so well with us for the Wranglers because back then, this was 2005 to 7, like Vegas was still very much a 24-hour town. I know it still is, but it's a different dynamic, man. From that time frame when I was there till now, like now there's rush hour traffic, and that didn't really exist to the same extent back then as it does now. Vegas has become really a kind of a 9-to-5 city in a lot of ways, whereas even then it was in that transition period. And maybe I'm misreading this because I interloped there for a few years, but that was the sense I got. So it really worked well, especially with industry people, to play those midnight games, because you get people that couldn't typically go to your game and suddenly, they're playing at midnight, I'll be there. It was fun. I wish I could have been at one.
I don't think it's quite, I wouldn't say 9 to 5's, taken over here. We still don't have traffic. Like, yeah, you're sitting it for a few minutes, but like go to another city and maybe not.
Well, Chicago's a different deal. Like Chicago sucks for traffic, man.
I know. I'm saying LA, Chicago.
I know. It's
brutal. Walmart's, grocery stores and Walmart's, when I first moved out here, were open 24 hours. Now they all close.
Yeah, that was something that freaked me out too. I used to walk over to the Smiths next door to the apartments at Flamingo Road and buy whatever I needed at midnight if I had to. And a cameo, a child. Hello, child. It was my daughter's 6-year birthday yesterday. We even string of birthdays in the McKenna family. My dad, 21st, my daughter 22nd, and my grandpa was 23rd, like 3 days in a row. So we've been knocking out the special days here left and right.
Quite the Violet appearance there.
Yeah, she's a little wild. Hey, because Mike, I know you like going through the comments, so I snapped a few here that maybe you guys would like to answer. Is Jack Eichel the face of the franchise now? I would argue that it's his and Petrangelo's team, and it will be for the next 5 years.
I don't think it's close at this point. I don't think he is at all.
I think he.
I don't know who is. I think it's Mark Stone. I think so.
I think it's fading quickly. I really do.
But that's because he's been hurt. So I'm not sure.
I don't
know who it is.
But not
every team has a face of the franchise, honestly. Like that was a unique thing with Fleury.
Is there a good team that doesn't?
You could look at Colorado. Like I think people looked at McKinnon, but geez, they got weapons. St. Louis, who's the face of St. Louis? Ryan O'Reilly, maybe. Is it Bennington? Is it O'Reilly? Like I think there's a lot of leniency when it comes to that. The Fleury deal in Vegas was really unique, man. That was
nobody's ever at that level. But I don't know.
Correct. I'm on, as Roman Reigns would say, I'm at God level now. Sorry, that's a wrestling reference.
But don't you guys think that after watching 30 games of Eichel, let's just say 16 wins in the postseason, okay, and then
I would change
the regular season next year. I mean, they're going to see that
16 wins in the postseason changes everything. If you ever get that, there's immediately different faces of the franchise because of what happens. But they don't have that, and they've never had that to this point. They got 13, and that team is way better than all the ones that got 11.
Yeah. But the skill level is just so, it's eye-popping, difference here. And I think fans are going to fall in love with that. I already am. So I'm going to say
the jerseys, you can tell by his reception. Like there is an excitement to it. But that's because he's been billed as the missing link, and he better be the missing link.
Right.
All right, here's another one.
Like if Eichel comes in and if Eichel during a regular season puts up 70 points, people are going to be furious. Yeah. And here's the thing: a lot of the seasons of his career, he's put up 70 points or 75. He has not had the same talent playing with him. Could be argued that he will in Vegas, but there's a real chance of that. Like he's not going to put up 100 points in a year, most likely. Like it could happen, but I think people need to temper their expectations just a touch here and just be realistic with it. That he's not truly a God mode. Like, this is a guy that's a damn good hockey player. one of the top in the league, but he is not McDavid, you know?
But if the
Is he
power play
McKinnon?
improves, if the power play improves to the point where it's one of the best in, let's just say, the Western Conference, I mean, that's clearly because of him.
Totally agree. It'll be on his shoulders because it's been hot garbage, honestly, for too long.
And if it stays hot garbage, is it on his shoulders?
I think it's, if you put him into the mix and it still sucks, you can't look at the players anymore. Like, this is the last bullet in the chamber if you put it on the players. What?
We've been saying that for months, for years.
I know, but that's what I'm telling you. This is the last bullet in the chamber where this will be the final bit of evidence, if you will.
Right, if that's the case, but
that could lead to a conviction, I guess.
Thanks, Jimerson.
Yes, we did. So many thanks to Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm, who is a very close personal friend. And
teaching us words like dynamism and what was the other stupid ass one I said? I can't even remember.
Remoted or something? Yeah.
What was the other question you had? I thought you had one other one. You were screenshotting.
I got a bunch. Is Leonard the only goalie that doesn't have a net guard? This is a question for you, Mike.
There's a decent amount in the league. Now let's distinguish this quick, and I'm going to be quick on these answers, or try to be. There's two types. When you say neck guard, a neck guard actually sits on your neck and protects your clavicle bones and your neck close.
Like a
okay.
collar, right?
Yes, like a turtleneck, really. He doesn't wear one of those. What you probably are referring to is what goalies call a dangler. Those are the clear pieces. They're a throat guard. They're a dangler. My daughter calls it a duckbill because hers kind of looks like it. Like, they sit below the helmet and they're clear. And Marc-Andre wore one of those. A lot of goalies do. I think half or so of the goalies in the league wear a dangler. But almost every goalie. No dangler for me, but I tell you what, I wore as high of a neck guard as I could because it wasn't pucks are one thing. Skates terrified me. Yeah, that's the only thing that scared me when I played were skate blades. So yeah, I know he doesn't wear it because he doesn't like it clanging around, and I didn't either. I hated that, the sound, the feel, all of that. I wanted it to be protected this way. Clint Malarchuk, somebody asked, he was the goaltender who was cut on the neck. They started to make higher neck guards that cover the neck better because of him. So,
Mike, how often does Mike change his skates?
I only wore one pair a year. I played with Marty St. Louis. He wore something like 16 pairs in a season because he liked the new feeling of them.
Wow.
It's kind of like basketball players that go through shoes all the time. You like the new feeling. And once you get used to a new feeling, you want to keep that. I just wasn't very hard on skates for whatever reason. But I would go through blades pretty often. I'd go through probably 4 or 5 pairs of blades a year just to keep those the same height.
Goalie blades, do they get sharpened the same as a normal skater, or does the sharpener just wear it down a lot more?
Same number of sharpenings. That's all it really is. Like, every time you sharpen a skate, obviously you take a little bit off of it, and you don't want to lose the height of the blade. But like you sharpen your skates in different radiuses, and because the skate blade is essentially hollowed out and there's 2 edges, and a forward skate blade is relatively dull compared to a goalie skate blade. Goalie blades in the NHL are usually sharpened anywhere from 3/8 to 1/2 inch, whereas forward skate blades in the NHL are usually 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. So they're much flatter, if you would, from the radius. And it used to be the inverse. It used to be that they said goalies wanted dull skates and players sharp skates. Well, now it's flipped around. Players are so strong and big and heavy, and they know how to use the edges, that they can use less edge. And goalies need more bite because they need to stop and start. So I could go endlessly on equipment if you guys can't tell.
Right? I mean, the skating in goalies now is way better than it used to be.
Well, big time. Yeah, it's just different. It's more precise. Like, I always put it this way. Like, imagine, I don't know if you guys know what a hydroplane is. It's a boat that races on water. But I mean, imagine comparing an F1 car to a hydroplane. And to me, players are like hydroplanes. They glide, like they're fluid in how they move, and whereas goalies are like F1 cars. It's just start and stop and fast and crisp and hitting your marks. There's not as much of that for the forwards and defensemen as there is for the goaltenders.
I have one more, but it's a comment for Ken. But before then, Mike, James Reimer the other night, right? He takes his mask off during a play because he's trying to get the attention of the referee. I mean, what's the thought process that the puck was still live and there was a player right near him? I understand what he's thinking, but I mean, if that puck hits his face or the player shoots it without the knowledge of the play being dead, I mean, we're talking about a whole different story here.
We do that because he had a shot hit him in the face. It blew the straps off the bottom of the mask. The vibration of that shot blows the straps off. The straps are clipped onto the mask. But when the helmet is impacted by the puck, it creates so much vibration that they pop off. And then the mask sits totally off of your head in the wrong way to the point that it's not safe any longer at all. Obviously, it's better than nothing, but our thought process as goaltenders is that the moment we shake that mask off, we get the whistle right away. And that's why
it didn't happen the other day. It was 10, maybe not 10 seconds, but a little bit after that.
It was a little bit, but that's as soon as they notice it, they'll blow. But they are not supposed to, like, if your helmet comes off during the course of a chance against, they're not supposed to blow the whistle. Like, I made saves without a mask in Albany one night. So, like,
wow,
I think it can happen. It's a bad rule. It's a terrible rule.
I think it's now.
It's not
helmet only. You sure?
I know this one 100%. If it's a scoring chance against, they do not have to blow that whistle. It's dangerous as can be, but the NHL has it for some reason.
What if the blade goes into the goalie's face?
This is the rule.
This stick blade.
This is the rule. Like, that'd be a high sticking penalty.
Can you high stick a goalie?
Yes.
Would have to be on a foul, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're standing up and you just like Dr. Hook McCracken or something.
Sometimes people take their sticks and try to swing them at Tomasz Nosek and instead hit refs. Apparently that's something that's happening in the NHL now.
Boy, Nathan McKinnon, I thought he was going to at minimum get fined because you have to be in control of your stick. And he swung at Tomasz Nosek and missed and impacted the referee. Some yahoos on the internet tried to prove with video replay that he didn't touch the guy. And the NHL comes out and says, yes, he did make impact with him. So it's like,
I was on those yahoos podcast last week.
Yeah, these Boston fans. So look how famous you are, Ken.
DNVR guys. He made a compelling argument in the 50-second video that I watched, and then
and he was
wrong.
He was wrong.
So what are you gonna do?
Yep.
What are you gonna do?
All right. Well, gentlemen, thanks to Jim Jimerson, the Jimerson Law Firm.
Always.
What a session. What are we looking like this coming weekend? Because this is hairy, man. Back to back with some travel, even if it's quick travel and one crappy team down in Arizona. Are they going to take Henderson to Arizona and leave the A squad in Vegas to play Colorado?
Fortunately, they don't.
That's so disrespectful what I just said.
Mike, Arizona's trying to tank themselves. They know.
Don't be a goober. Come on.
There you go.
Did it. All right. Good stuff. We'll go out with that. What I think the Golden Knights are going to win both games over the weekend.
1-1.
1-1. They're not getting past Colorado.
All right. I'm going to pick them to beat Colorado again. That's it. Good night, everyone. Thanks to Jim Jimerson Law Firm. Good night.